My name is Johan Oldenkamp and I will present in this video presentation the foundation of Holy Science. I call it the Holy Science Basics. The first part is about the world. And the main question here is one world enough? As I also show in other videos, I start with the work of Plato. Plato lived about 2300 years ago on this planet in what we now call Greece. And this is his famous allegory of the cave. Here you see a picture of Plato. And Plato said that our world, which seems to be real to us, are mere shadows. It's a shadow world. And those shadows are created because objects here are in front of the fire. So they block the light from the fire, and that's why they create shadows. In this allegory I see three different aspects of our total reality. You can call it three different worlds. The third world, the outer world, I call the shadow world. That's the world we think of to be real. But it is in fact not standing on its own. It's a reflection, it's a projection from the objects in the second world. And the second world I call the proto world. Proto means foremost, like in prototype. So the prototype, the proto world, comes before the shadow world. But we're not able to perceive the proto world because our senses are only focused on the shadow world. The first world, that's the world of God, or Allah, or Brahma, or Yahweh, or anything you like to call it. That's the world of the Creator. The Creator, the fire, creates everything, and because these objects are blocking the light from the fire, we see the shadows. In the same way, the proto-world is a kind of dynamics created from the source world, and the shadows of the proto-world, that is what we call, for instance, matter. All the phenomena in the shadow world are created by the proto-world. The world we perceive as to be real, the physical world, is three-dimensional world, 3D. And we find that all the phenomena, all events, all matter, everything is a phenomenon. And those phenomena, they are created, they are caused by the noumena. That's the word Plato used for it. And it is a reference to all the energies, or the vital forces, the primary forces in the world before. We can also call this the spiritual world. Yeah, our senses are blocked here, we cannot see into the spiritual world, but there has to be a spiritual world. And Plato used this word, dromena, and dromena means intensive copied. Something that can be copied over and over and over again. So this is in fact the source code, like also computer code. We can copy and copy and copy a computer code and create the same program over and over again. So that's what we find in the source world, the source code. And the source code creates the dynamics here in the proto world, like a wave, and that wave creates the vortices, the torus fields in the shadow world. So we find these torus fields, these vortices, in the 3D shadow world. And this is an image of it. It goes round, 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 goes to the center all the way, then down to the center, and spiraling up again, coming again. Never-ending dynamics. This is another picture of it. Here we see the energies going into the core. I call the core the 0 point. The 0 point is the center of this energetic movement. So the energies go to the central point, the core point, the 0 point, go through it and then come back again, over and over and over again. Another image, colors. You see here the dynamics of going into the core and out, many ways, round and round and round. But it's not one torus field, there are in fact two, complementary, on top of each other. One is spinning left, other spinning right, clockwise, counterclockwise. And together they form the duality we perceive in this world, the duality of yin and yang, Tao. This is what we now know. Everything is like this. First we thought there was only one torus field, but we now know there are two on top of each other, spinning in different directions. This is what we perceive in our 3D world. For instance, when we let water spiral down, like that. Water is spiraling down, and we see the vortex movement. When we let water go down from the bathtub or the sink, we see the same movement. Walter Russell said, all motion is spiral and all direction is curved. And the same with Victor Schauberger. So people who watch nature carefully, they see that this is true for everything in nature. And that's of course related to the torus field that we saw before. So let us look at the duality of yin and yang more carefully, more closely. Here again we see the torus field, and we see the movement spiraling up, going into the top, and under the surface to the center. From the center it goes all the way to the down, and then outwards it goes up. So outwards it goes up, inwards it goes down. You can also reverse it, but this is how I show it now. So we see in, out movement, and then down, up movement. I refer to this shape as the apple. You can also call it the forbidden apple, which Eve was supposed to have eaten from. The movements inwards towards the center, that is a positive movement. We can make a comparison with our money. Let's say this is our bank account. Money is coming into our bank account. That is positive because then we have more money. Here we see money going out of our bank account. That is negative because then we have less money. Positive doesn't mean good and negative doesn't mean bad. That's just labels we can put on it, but it's depending on your own perspective. When you are very thirsty, then it's very positive when you get something to drink. But when you very urgently need to go to the bathroom, then it's very positive when you can release some liquid. So it's depending on your own perspective whether this is good or that is good. Nature does not say anything about good and bad. It only says about positive and negative. We can put the labels on it if we want to. Here we see another reference to the central point, the 0 point, the null point in the center. The spiraling movement towards the center is always counterclockwise. And away from the center, it's always clockwise. So when we see the movement of the clock, like this, then it means that it is going away from us. So when we look at the face of a clock, then it means that time is going away, because it's a clockwise movement, it's a negative movement, it's going away. Time is going away from us. That's what the clock is telling us. So we have the 3D world, where we find the torus fields. We have the 2D world, where we find the dynamics of up and down, the rhythm. And we find the source code, in which everything is present, but in a still way, not in a moving way. The movement starts here. And that movement in the proto-world, that is referred to by Heraclitus as pantarei in Greek. And Plato was the one who wrote it down. And pantarei means everything flows. Nothing in the whole of the universe is standing still. Everything is always moving, flowing, dynamic. So this is the never-ending movement in the proto-world. It's the sine wave, the 2D sine wave. We breathe in, we breathe out. It's becoming light, becoming dark. Water is going up, water is going down. Everything is always like this. We find this sine wave in all natural processes. Our body temperature is going up, and in the night it's going down again. Many, many more. So in the world of the source world, we find the code, the source code. And you could say the code is very simple. It's going on, it's going off. It's going on, it's going off. 0, 1, 0, 1. You could say it's a kind of binary code in the source. And that creates the dynamics in the second world, the proto-world. When it's on, you get a positive wave. When it's negative, when it's off, it's a negative wave. So that's the sine wave you find in the second world, the 2D world, the proto world. And then the 3D world, that means the spiraling inwards, spiraling outwards, spiraling inwards and spiraling outwards. That's how we can look at it. Some people talk about fourth dimension and fifth dimension. I don't know what that means. I think the opposite is true. Instead of going to the fourth dimension, we go to the second dimension and eventually we arrive in the first dimension. Because the first dimension is the dimension of God. And that's what we're heading for. That's what I think. This is the first dimension. The first dimension of God, the Creator. Origin of everything. A lot of words that refer to the world of God start with an O. The letter O. And in God, it's also the central letter in the middle. So the O, the letter O, refers to me to the whole of everything. Origo is the Latin word for origin. It starts with an O and it ends with an O. Origin starts with an O. And the word omni means everything, also starts with an O. And in other languages too. In the Dutch we even have two letters, O, at the beginning of the word for origin. And of course in source there's also an O. So, I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it has meaning. O means the start of everything, the perfect circle. The word Ouroboros is the snake that bites in his own tail. Here you see the snake biting in his own tail. The snake is in fact one dimension. It's a long line, but that long line is curved back into its beginning. That's why we see that after a certain phase, the cycle starts again, and again, and again. That's in fact what is going on. In French we say, l'histoire se répète. History repeats itself, because the snake bites itself in its tail, and from this moment on, we have the same occurrence, the same pattern again, maybe at a higher level. So this is one line, one dimension. One starts with an O, but this is again also a zero, and the zero ends with an O. So it's 0 and 1 at the same time. It's the whole of everything, holy. I use the word holy to refer to this. This is holy. And logos also has two O's. And here we see the source code, simplified. Starts with a 0 and a 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, and so on. Yeah, it's very simple code, just an example. Of course, it's not the real code, it's just an example. This is, by the way, exactly what we see in the film The Matrix. We see the codes coming by on the screen. The Matrix is based on the source code. That's what it's also telling us here. 1 means going in, and 0 means going out. And in the word 1, it looks like a 1, and out looks like a 0 too. So in is 1, out is 0. Incoming towards the center, towards the 0 point, outgoing away from the 0 point, away from the center. The inward movement, going towards the center, that's called yin. Yin means in. And the opposite, yang, means out. Maybe it would have been more easy if we didn't call it yang, but we call it yout, then it was yin and yout, it would be even more clear. But yin means in and yang means out. In movement is always positive, it's always counterclockwise. Out movement is always negative, it's always clockwise. I use the triangle, upwards meaning yang, and a triangle downwards meaning yin. A triangle with a point down is female, is yin. Pointing up is male, is out. As I showed before, when there is a water spiral going down, you see here the water spiraling going down, something is happening at the same time, but we're not always aware of it. Because at the same time the water is spiraling down, air is spiraling up. It happens at the same time. That's why there is a spiral, because water is downwards while air is going upwards. And they have to twist around each other. That's why it's always in balance in nature. Spiral down means also spiraling up. But mostly we only see one part of the dynamic. The universities focus on the shadow world. They think that is the only real world. And if you cannot prove it in the shadow world, they claim it doesn't exist. I think that's a very limited way to look at the world. The world is much bigger than only the shadow world. So here we find physics, chemistry, astronomy, and our senses cannot go across the veil. The veil hinders us, blocks us to see the worlds before, in front of that, the proto world and even the source world. We can make contact with that, but not with our senses, but with other parts of our consciousness. So here we find physics. On the other side of the veil we find metaphysics. Meta means on top of, above. So it's the physics above, means on the other side of the veil. Here we find chemistry, chemi. Here we find alchemy, the chemistry of the whole. All means whole. And astrology is the logic of the stars. This is only the naming. Nomi means naming. This is only the naming of the stars. Here we find the logic. Astronomy cannot tell us anything about the logic. They can only name it and describe it, but that's all. And that's the main problem with this science. This science cannot explain anything at all. They can only describe. But to me, true science is about explaining, not describing. And they fool us. They fool us by giving us impressive scientific formula, mathematic formula. We think those formula are explanations, but they're not. They're only descriptions. So we need to be very, very careful in knowing that this is not actually science. This is more journalism. They're only describing. True science we find here. This is true science. This is journalism. Descriptions. And there's much more. Numerology, Enneagram, Feng Shui. Universities think this is all bollocks. This is not really science. The opposite is true. This is more real. This is more telling us more about the reality than this. This is only describing what we can see in the third dimension. This is what happens truly in the second dimension. And it's all about the life energies. In China, they say Qi. In Japan, they say Ki. India is Prana. In the German part of this world, ancient Germany, it's called Frill or Orgo. All different words, they all refer to life energies, because these sciences are all about the life energies. And then we go to the source world, the world in the center, and the only thing the Creator really wants, the will of the Creator, is to have rhythmic, balanced interchange. It's all about balance, but that balance is not static. That balance is in dynamics, of course. So it's a kind of rhythmic balance. But that balance goes also sometimes more to the left, more to the right. So it's an interchange between all the different parts. But in total, everything is in balance, but on a very dynamic, very flexible way. And this whole of the source world, the proto world, the source, the proto and the shadow world, that's what I call the holy science. Holy science is about the whole of everything. I'm not too happy with the churches, neither am I really happy with the universities, because they fool us, they trick us, they don't help us to see the whole picture. The churches give us belief systems, and those belief systems are full of oppressive dogmas. They make you afraid of the devil, and if you do good, then they give you heaven. That's a very childish way to fool people. I don't believe that at all. And the university do not give us really science. They give us all kinds of crazy ideas about space-time curvings, and about black holes, and about gluons and botons, and all kinds of weird particles. To me, that's not science. To me, that is science fiction. Science should be explaining things. This science is only describing things. It's a lot about fantasy. They create all kinds of particles to make sure that theories are put into practice, or somehow make it work. But they're not really working. They're full of errors. I don't use the word holy, because holy, with an H at the start and one L, means full of holes. And the stories we find at the churches are indeed full of holes. The basic ingredients are left out, and a lot of stuff is put upside down to totally confuse us. I'm not too happy about that. And the same happens here. The stories here are also full of holes. For instance, the theory of Charles Darwin. Some people talk about the missing link. That's a very big hole they're missing. Very big hole, gigantic hole. There's no missing link. The theory is totally different. The truth is totally different. And they also use all kinds of tricks to fool you. The belief systems, the religions talk about random act of God. For God there are different names, but that God can do all kinds of crazy stuff in order to make things happen the way they happened. It doesn't make any sense at all. And the same happens with the fantasy at the universities. They like the word coincidence a lot, because everything they cannot explain, and that's really a lot, they say it's coincidence. No, nothing is coincidence. Coincidence does not exist. Coincidence is unknown dynamics. Everything has a reason. There's a logic behind everything. And it's very stupid if you can't see the logic, then you call it coincidence. That's not science. That's not true science. True science is trying to explain everything, trying to find that dynamics, explain it. Within every belief, in the center of every belief, we find a lie. And please understand that believing is not really helping you at all. Try to know the truth, and turn your back to belief. So this is the whole of reality. In the center of the whole of reality, we find the source world. Around the source world, we find the worlds, the proto-world, and the outer circle, that's the shadow world. This is the way the temples in the ancient times were created. The high priests were allowed to enter the most sacred part in the center, the holy of the holiest. They were only allowed to enter here. The normal priests were allowed to enter the second one, and the outer ring was meant for the remaining people. They could only enter here. And it's true, because that's the rest. If you have no knowledge about this, then you cannot enter this world. Then you will stay here with your senses. But if you have knowledge, if you know knowledge about holy silence, then you can go across the veil and you enter the proto-world. And if you have even more knowledge, then you can understand the world of God, the source world. So this is, in fact, the whole of everything. And a lot of societies are still created like that. You need to get to higher levels to go to the center of it. The world, the proto-world, is the world above, and the shadow world is the world below. Hermes Trismegistus said, as above, so below. So this world, the below world, is a kind of mirror image of the world above. When you're able to enter the source world with your understanding, then you become a sorcerer. Sorcerer means somebody who understands the source. The word is now spelled differently, but in fact it should be spelled like this, because you understand the source. Something happens when it crosses the veil. Here we see a left hand, but when you look carefully to the reflection of the left hand, it's a right hand. Yeah, the thumb is on the other side. And the same happens here. When the positive yin energies go through the veil, they turn to be negative. At least our impression is that it is negative. Here it is white, but we perceive it as black. In reality, the yang energies are negative, are black, but we perceive them as being white, being positive. So now, black means negative, but that's the way we perceive yin. White means positive, that's the way we perceive yang. But in reality, yang is in essence negative, outgoing, while yin is in essence positively ingoing. I hope this is clear, because there's a lot of confusion. All the ancient texts refer to yin as being negative, and that's why I use the color black, but in essence, yin is positive. And all the classic work refer to yang, the male, as being positive, that's why I use the white color, but in essence, it is negative. And it has to do with the perspective. When we take the perspective from the center of this dynamics, then we see that something is coming towards us, which is positive, and we see something going away from us, which is negative. That's the internal perspective, from the center point in the middle, the 0 point. But now we take the external perspective. We look at it from outside. And then we see that something is going into something which we cannot see. It's disappearing somehow. That's why our sciences, our universities call this a black hole. Why? Because something is disappearing into it. We refer to it as black, as being negative. And the opposite is here. We see that something is coming out of something. I have no clue what it is. This is a sun or a star. Light is coming out of the star. It's coming out, and we refer to it as positive. So the stars are positive to us, while the black holes are negative. But they are, in fact, two aspects of the same thing. So the life energies, the male life energies, the young life energies, they take away the life energy, they perish, while the female, the yin life energies, they give more life energy. They are reviving, incoming, outgoing. That is why new life is always created inside a female body, a yin body, never in a yang body. It's not possible. The life-giving surrounding environment is required to create new life. That's why in a female, always new life is growing. But when we perceive the male energies coming towards us, or the female energies, it's twisted upside down. Because in the daytime, the yang energies come towards us, and we perceive it as light, and we become warm. So we perceive this as positive with our senses. And we perceive the opposite as being negative. Night is colder, it's cooling down, and it's dark. So we think this is negative, and this is positive. This is what our senses tell us. But in essence, life energies are going away during the daytime. That is why at the end of the day we are exhausted. Our life energy is going down. The lines of our batteries are at the lowest point. Batteries are nearly dead. Well, then we go to sleep in the night, and during the night our energies are brought up again. And when we wake up after a good night's sleep, all the lines are up again. So the battery is fully charged. That happens during the night. So this is charging, this is taking away energy. But we perceive it opposite. That's the funny part of it. So again, yin is in fact positive, but we perceive it as negative, while yang is negative, but we perceive it as positive. Let us now go to the Trinity. This is a Trinity. The real Trinity is the Mother, the Father, and the Child. The Mother is yin, being positive. Father is yang, being negative, while the Child is both at the same time, fully in balance. These are the Latin words. Mater means mother, pater means father, and infant, like infant, means child. In the Bible we find a very male version of the Trinity, because it's Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, or the Holy Ghost. Like they're all three male, three young energies. There's also a female version of that, a yin version. Maiden, mother, and crone. A young woman, a mother, and an old woman. Or in Hinduism we find Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, also a Trinity. And of course we perceive that Trinity, the Sun being the Father, so-called to say, Luna being a kind of mother to us, the Moon, and our home planets being some kind of child of both of them. Of course this is not true, but this is also a Trinity. Yeah? I call the Sun Helios, like the ancient Greek did. I call the Moon Luna, like in Rome they did it, in Latin. And I also refer to this home planet of ours as Terra. That's also a Latin name. Because I think it's important to give true names to our planets instead of referring to them as in a general way. And this is also a kind of Trinity. Holy science is an upgrade and integration of religion science and health. It's not only about science, but it also includes religion and it includes health. Because there's a lot of true information in all the religions, in all the sacred, in all the holy scriptures. Healthcare has been taken over by the pharmaceutical industry. Everybody knows that, I think. But it's very important to be healthy, because if you're not healthy, you cannot understand the whole of reality. So health is also important. Holy science is a trinity of these three. Now let us look at a quartet. A quartet is in fact a double duality. It's a duality within a duality. And then we get four. This is the duality we saw before. Breathing in, breathing out. This is the night part. The night part is ruled by the moon, Luna, and the day part is ruled by the sun, Helios. So it's in, out. This is the duality, rhythmic balanced interchange, yin, yang. But we can divide that duality again into two parts, each part into two. Now we look at the zero line, the horizontal line. Part here is going away from the zero line. Here it's going away. So that means going out. And from all the way down, maximum down, it comes back again to the central line. So this is in movement. Then it crosses the central line and it goes out again, away from the central line, all the way to the top, and from the top it goes back to the central line. So we see out, in, 4 phases. And those 4 phases we also find in the forbidden apple. The blue and the red colors are on the outside, on the skin of the apple, so to say. While the black and the white phases are under the skin, are inside the apple. Let's refer to this as a planet, as our own planet. Here we have the North Pole, this is the equator, and this is the South Pole. That's on the outside. And in the center we find the center of our planet, the core of our home planet. So from that core, we have the first phase is going from the core to the South Pole. That's the white part. Then on the outside, because that was inside, on the outside it goes with the blue phase from the South Pole to the equator. Then from the equator to the North Pole, the red phase. And then from the North Pole it goes inside to the center with the black phase. So there are 4 colors here. Black, white on the inside, red and blue on the outside. And those 4 phases have been given names by our ancestors. Earth, air, water and fire. Earth and air are the phases inside, and they are smaller because they are inside. And that's why they have 2 lines, extra lines in the middle, showing that they are inside. And these 2 don't have those lines. You see again that the triangle pointing down is female, because earth and water are female energies, and the triangle pointing up are male energies. Air and fire are male energies. These symbols, triangles pointing up and down with or without the horizontal inner line, they are from alchemy. They are very ancient. But they match fully, perfectly with the phases of the energetic apple, if you put them like this. So it has to be true. Can't be anything else like that. This is why they use these colors, to make it really clear. Earth is black, air is white, especially when there are a lot of chemtrails. It's white, air is really white, water is blue, and fire is red. So that's why I use these colors. Red, blue, and black and white. Black and white are a combination, and the same is true for red and blue. Yeah, they form a couple. Here we see the colors again: air, water, and then fire, earth. It's a very important order: air, water, fire, earth. Air is the first phase, water is the second phase, fire is the third phase, earth is the fourth phase. Earth is 4, fire is 3, water is 2, air is 1. Here we see the symbol of yin and yang, Tao. Yin again means in, yang means out. Positive, negative, pointing downwards triangle, pointing upwards. This is the way it's used in the trigrams or the hexagrams, in the I Ching for instance, or the Feng Shui. A broken line is female, while an unbroken line is male. But it's not only yin and yang, it's also air, fire, water and earth. Because the big part, the big white drop, that's how we perceive fire. Fire is the big positive male, the big male part, the big yang part. While the big female part, the big yin part, that's water. But there are also two smaller parts. And the smaller white part, meaning yang, is air, while the smaller black part, meaning yin, means earth. So it's not only yin and yang, it's also air, fire, water and earth. Oh. Now we use the right colors. We see that fire is now red and water is blue. Air is white, earth is black. This is very familiar to us because this is what we see at the flag of South Korea. We see the big red part meaning fire, the big blue part meaning water, and there are 4 signs. This is of course 3 times male meaning fire. This is 3 times water, 3 times female meaning water. So then this must be, for instance, earth, and this must be air. If you have eyes, you can see it. It's clear. No flag on this planet has been created coincidentally. There are always hidden meanings behind it. You can also refer to this as the demiurge, the creator with 2 sides. Most people know this prayer, Our Father who art in heaven. But there's another prayer, very similar to that, and that's Our Mother who art in earth. And of course I think everybody knows who is our mother. This prayer can be found in the Essene Gospel of Peace. You can look it up on the internet, it's there, you can read it online. And the prayer is there, you can read it. And it's very similar to this one. Our mother is of course the planet we live on. And I refer to that planet as Terra. And Terra is made out of water. When we look at the surface, about 70% of her surface is covered with water. So Terra is a reference to water. Earth is a reference to earth. It's not too difficult. So here we see the 2 female energies pointing down, triangles pointing down. That means that the prayer, Our Mother who art in earth, is a prayer to the female energies. And that is the reason why it is left out of the Bible, because the Bible is promoting the male, the yang energies, and putting away, suppressing the female yin energies. I'll give more examples to that in my other lectures. But that's deliberately done. So that yin has been suppressed, has been left out, but it's very important to understand that yin is equally important as yang. So then we have this prayer, Our Father who art in heaven. What is this prayer about? Let's start with heaven. Heaven is a reference to the air, because we know this has to be a prayer for the male yang energies, and heaven is then above, and above is air, because below is earth, so that must be air. Well, this is earth. Yeah, we're standing on earth, we can dig a hole, and we go down in the earth, but when we jump up in the air. So air is up, and what earth is down. So heaven must be earth, air, and then we have one left, and that is of course fire. That means that our Father has to be fire that is up in the air. What is fire that is up in the air? That is of course the sun Helios. So our Father who art in heaven is not God, like most people think. That's not true. Our Father who art in heaven is the sun Helios. And this is Jesus Christ. This is not God, this is Jesus Christ. In other lectures I will explain about that. It's important to know that. And Jesus Christ is not a person, Jesus Christ is the Son, Helios. Not a person, not a human being, it's a star. This is the way to refer to Helios in Western astrology. A circle with a circle in the middle, sphere in the middle. And this is the symbol for our home planet, for Terra. A circle with a cross inside. So this is the symbol for Terra, this is the symbol for Helios. Animal that is symbolizing Terra is the snake. The snake is the symbol for Earth. It's an earth animal. While the animal that is referring to fire, or I better say air, is the eagle. The eagle is the air animal, it's up in the air. And the combination of the eagle and the snake, that is the dragon. Because that's a snake with wings. That's in fact what a dragon is. Some people think that dragons actually were on this planet. I think it's mythology. And that mythology is showing the combination of air up in the air and a snake down on the earth. And then you get this. In ancient Egypt, it was symbolized like this. Yeah, all pharaohs had this kind of symbols on their head. Combination of a snake and something with wings, with the head of a human. Because the human is the combination of the snake and the eagle. So in fact we are all dragons. I'm a dragon, you are a dragon, we're all dragons. We find the same dynamics, the same division when we look at the aggregation states of matter. When we look at H2O, water, water is under the 0 degrees Celsius or 33 degrees Fahrenheit. It is solid, it's ice. Above that threshold, it becomes liquid. And above 100 degrees Celsius, it becomes gas, steam, white. And when we ionize that gas, then it becomes plasma. Plasma is the one that is mostly forgotten. We only think there are 3, but there's a 4th one. The 4th one is plasma. And the plasma is maybe the most important one. The sun is a plasma planet, because plasma is the energies of the sun. When we play with a deck of cards, then we see the same ordering, because the symbol for spades is pointing towards the center in the middle of the apple. This is a symbol pointing towards here. That's why the tail is inside. So it's pointing towards here, meaning 1. Spades is a symbol for 1, while hearts is a symbol for 2. When 2 people are in love with each other, they draw a heart, they make an arrow in between, and they write their initials on both sides. Heart means connecting 2. So this is a symbol for 2. Clubs is a symbol for 3, because there are 3 leaves. And of course, diamonds is a symbol for 4. And indeed, that's the correct ordering, because after the 0 point, this is phase 1, that is phase 2, that is phase 3, and that is phase 4. The life-giving energies, the female energies, the yin energies, are colored red. Red is life-giving. While the life-taking energies, the yang energies, are colored black. Air and fire are colored black. Has to mean something. I think this was done deliberately, a long time ago, in order to not forget about this holy science. 4 types of energy. Kinetic energy is connected with earth. Chemical energy is connected with air, because air wants to go out, expand, and that's what chemical energy does. An explosion, a chemical explosion, then suddenly you create a lot of extra space. Air wants to expand, so that's air energy. Magnetic energy is connected with water, and electric energy with fire. Magnetic and electric energy are much stronger energies, much more powerful than these 2. Much more. That's why they are here and these are here. Again, we see the four energies, and they correspond to the subatomic world. A proton is connected with earth, neutron with water, electron with air, and a photon with fire. About 96.3% of all living matter consists of these four atoms. Carbon is connected with earth, hydrogen with water, oxygen with air, and nitrogen with fire. It's the same division into four. This is how we try to describe the subatomic world. Please understand that this is not an explanation, this is only a description, because it only tells us which is on which level, but it doesn't explain anything. And these so-called forces, they are not explanations either, they are descriptions. Please understand the difference. This does not explain, this is only describing what is happening. And in order, for instance, to have a gravitational force, physics came up with the idea that there has to be some kind of particle called a graviton. Nobody has ever taken a picture of a graviton because a graviton does not exist. It has zero mass, so it's not really a particle. It's a concept, it's an idea, but it doesn't exist at all. Neither does this force exist. It's a description of something that is happening, but there is no gravity. There is, of course, the effect of gravity, but it's not a force. It's an effect of a magnetic field, something totally different. So we think that all is, we see that it's all in layers. Matter is built up from atoms. Each atom has a core with electrons around it. Each core consists of neutrons and protons, and each particle, electron, neutron or proton, consists of quarks. And there are 6 types. This is also a trinity, and each trinity, each part of the trinity is a duality. 6 is a very important number. 6 is an essential number. If you understand holy science, you understand the importance of the number 6, the amount of 6. So each particle, doesn't matter if this is a subatomic particle or a galaxy, it's all the same, no matter how high or low or how all levels it's the same, has a field around itself, energetic field. It means that it's receiving energy and it's sending out energy again. And the way it receives energy determines its spin, because the energies are always coming in counterclockwise. So this energy is coming in counterclockwise, giving this particle energy, and then the energy is giving out again, sent out again. And that is why this particle always has a spin. Physics cannot explain why, for instance, an electron has a spin, why this planet has a spin, why everything is spinning. Where is the energy coming from for the spin? There is no explanation from the academic universities, from this. This theory, holy science, is explaining it really easily, because everything is receiving energies. And the energies it's a vortex coming in. So that means that it's going around. And that's why this is spinning. And when you reverse it, then the spin reverses. Very simple. So gravitational force is not really a force in itself. It is related to a magnetic field. These are the 4 so-called forces of nature, according to physics. I don't think they are forces of nature. They are descriptions of the forces of nature, because the true forces of nature are earth, air, water and fire. They try to find the unified theory of everything. Not that the unified theory of everything is already here. This is the unified theory of everything. The energetic apple. It has 4 faces, and those 4 faces are the gravitational force, the electromagnetic force, the strong nuclear force, and the weak nuclear force. The theory is already connected, if you see the connections. Radioactivity has related to the weak nuclear force. It's sending out radiation. It's going out. That's why it's a yang, male energy phase. And gravitation is going inwards. That's why it's female. But there's also anti-gravity, for instance by sound. People did research about that. When you change the frequencies, you can lift an object. On the internet you can find many videos showing that. With sound you can lift an object. So there is no gravitational force, something else. With sound you change the dynamics of the magnetic field, and that's why objects are lifted. And maybe you've done this party levitation. You put somebody on a chair, and with a certain routine, you're able to lift that person up with only 2 fingers, without any effort. It's possible. So how can this happen if there is truly a gravitational force? Can you tell the gravitational force, please switch off now and let us do this experiment? No. It has to do with magnetism. So our Father who art in heaven is above, and our Mother who art in the earth is below. This is our Father, and this is our Mother. And we are a combination of those two. So this is, for instance, our body, and what we get from our Father, that is the Spirit, or some call it the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is the fire that we get from above. From our Mother, we receive our soul. And we, every human being, is a trinity of spirit, body, and soul. Soul comes from our Mother, from above, from our Father, comes the Spirit, and they come together in our physical body. If we didn't have a physical body, these two could not come together. They need the circle in order to be inside of it. So the spirit is made from fire, while the soul is made from water. Here you see an ancient painting, 1732. Here we see that the spirit is like fire, is like light coming from above and is descending onto the people. It's coming into you, exactly as I showed in the previous slide. Fire is coming down to us, and when we open our crown chakra, it's coming into us. And the soul is made from water that's coming from beneath. And we talk about soul steering. You can steer water. The water is steered in us. That's why it's called soul steering. And when our soul is touched, water is coming out of our eyes. We cry. That's water. So water is related to our soul. Soul is made from water, while spirit is made from fire. Here we see those into one picture, but now we also see the 4 functions of our consciousness. Because we can think, we can feel, we can perceive, and we can do. Those are the 4 functions of our consciousness. Thinking and doing is active, is young, is male. While feeling and perceiving is female, is passive. We receive it. Yeah, when we do, we go out. We are going out into the world. And the same is with thinking. We go into the mental reality, but we are active. Well, when we are feeling, we receive feelings in us, and we become aware of what we feel. So that's receiving, it's passive. And the same is true with perception. When we see something, we hear, we smell, taste, it's all receiving information, passive way. Doing and perceiving, they are in the outer world. When I'm doing something, everybody can see it, so it's an outer world. And what I perceive, I can share easily with other persons. So this is outside, in the world of the senses, in the 3D world, so to say. While this is in the 2D world, thinking and feeling. What I think and what I feel is difficult for me to share with other people. Yeah, I now make a video explaining what I think. But it takes a lot of time for me to explain everything, and it takes your time too to understand what I'm trying to explain. So thinking is inside. It's in me. It's in my 2D reality. And the same is with feeling. So to share this is much more difficult than to share this with somebody. This is subjective, while this is objective. Here we have the inner perspective, here we have the outer perspective. This is a metaphor from ancient times. It's the carriage with the horse in front of and the coachman sitting on the couch. The carriage is a reference to the physical body, and the physical body is about perceiving our senses. So earth are the senses. Fire, and that's of course the carriage. The horse is fire. Yeah? Horse is having fire, wants to make a movement. And it's driving, the horse is driving the carriage. And the horse is a metaphor for our instincts. On top of that we find the coachman. And the coachman is guiding the horse. In the same way our emotions are guiding our instincts. And on top of that we find the person inside of the couch, the carriage. And that person, the master or the passenger, is telling the coachman where to go. So the ideas are somehow informing our emotions. Emotions are steering our instincts, and our instincts guide our perceptions. It's a hierarchy. And that hierarchy is very clearly here. The passenger tells the coachman tells the horse, and the horse pulls the carriage, the couch. And that is how life is created, how life is structured on this planet. All living creatures, everything that lives, has earth. Earth means cells, living cells. Everything that lives consists of living cells. Single cell organisms and multiple cell organisms. So that's the earth layer, physiology. And that's the layer of cause and effect. All animals, because all plants stay on this level, they don't go higher, but all animals are at this level or higher. All animals are at least at the level of instincts. And all cold-blooded animals don't go higher. So all cold-blooded animals have only an instinct. And it's about conditioning. You can train them. Yeah? By stimuli. Stimuli and response. That's the way to train at this level. So this is our instinct level. And we share that with all animals. For instance, with the crocodile, with reptiles. All warm-blooded animals, they go to the third level. Yeah? For instance, the chimpanzee. They have emotions, they have feelings. And they care about each other. Cold-blooded animals do not care about each other at all. There's no connection between them. But warm-blooded animals, they do have a connection. So all warm-blooded animals go up to the third level. And when you have intelligence, when you have a neocortex, when you have a brain, upper brain, then you can reason, and then you can know. I've heard that some people are able to actually use their brain, but I don't know how many people do that, because most people are not really using their brain at all, and they perhaps stay at this level, and some even stay at this level. It's a pity, but human beings are supposed to be on this level, and even higher, but it's hardly ever the case anymore. People are dumbing down. Perceiving is about pureness. Doing is about doing the right thing. Feeling is about feeling something that is real, authentic. While thinking is about which is true and which is false. So those are four different aspects we can focus on. Now let's go to the quintet, 5. It's 4 plus 1. The 4 you already have, and there comes one extra. And that extra is there, comes straight from the original word, source word. We can say that God is omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. Those are the 3 qualities, Trinity qualities of God. And the will of the Creator, the will of God, Walter Russell calls it the universal mind, that will can be expressed into information. The same when we go to the notary, we write down our own will, and the will is put into information, and that information can be put into practice. That's exactly what happens here. The will of God is information, and that information can be expressed into ether. Ether is the field in which all that information is present. So ether, or you can also say akasha, which is the same, is the field, and in that field all information is present, and in that field we find movement, and that movement is called prana, or chi, or ki, or organ, or frill, and that's the life force. The life force is moving in that field. The field is the one dimension, and the prana, the movement, is 2D. Field of information, the electromagnetic waves, that's what we see here. Water and fire in a dynamic interaction, that's the electromagnetic world. This is 2D and it is within the 1D world. So here we see 1D, the ether field information. This is 2D, the dynamics of fire and water. And this is 3D, where we see air and earth being the most dominant forces. Yeah, under we find earth, and up we find air in our shadow world. Because we cannot see the fire, we cannot see electricity, and we cannot see magnetism. It's impossible. You can feel magnetism, and you can feel electricity. When you put your fingers on an electric wire, you can actually feel it, but you cannot perceive it in the sense that you can see it with your eyes, or you can smell it, or you can taste it. But of course, when you get a shock, then you get, of course, experience it. So ether is information, and information can be expressed in fire, in water, in air, and in earth, in 4 different ways. And we all know that, because it's nothing new. Ether, information expressed in earth, is physical information. Information stored in a physical way. And we do that from the clay tablets, and even the paintings in cave. It's all physical storage. And also the record is also a physical storage. The good part about physical storage, it can last long. The negative part is very difficult to erase it and to put a new information on top of it. Yeah? If you want to have a new song on the record, it's a very complicated process. Yeah? To erase a clay tablet, you have to make it flat again, and then you have to draw again. So this is the physical way of storing information. Then we discover that you can also send information through the air. When I have here a receiver, I can receive all kinds of information that is broadcasted at this moment. Radio waves. So the air is full of information. All kinds of songs and talk programs, whatever, talk shows. It's all in the air at the moment. So we need only an antenna to receive that, to take that information out of the air. Then we discovered that we are also able to put the information onto magnetic tapes. For instance, there was a nice song on the radio, you had a magnetic, you had a record, you had a cassette deck, then you were able to record the song from the radio onto your own cassette. And you could play that song over and over again from your cassette. And when you didn't like that song anymore, you could just erase it and put a new song on top of that. Very easy. And the same with the floppy disk from the computer. You could store your program here. If you didn't like it anymore, you just deleted it. And you could put a new one there. So magnetic information is much more flexible than the physical one. Yeah? And it can last longer than the air because the air is gone. Yeah? You have to take it out of the air now or it's gone. So this is more flexible. Magnetic has everything to do with water. The work of Masaru Emoto shows that water has memory. That means water has magnetic memory. Water is like a cassette. And when you put negative information into the water will remember that. So that's why it's very important to know what kind of information is in the water that you drink, what you get from the tap or is in your coffee. Water is very important. Our body consists for about 70% out of water. What information is stored in that water? Do we know that? It's very important to know that. That's why I turn with the water, because by turning it in the opposite direction, in the middle way, then I remove all the information which is in the water. That's why I do it like this. I remove all the information, I erase it, and then I can put, when I do it in a female way, I put new information. Let's say harmony, or gratitude, or love. That's the information I can put in my water. And then I drink it. It's very important to do that. So that is the magnetic way of storing information. And then we have on top of that the photoelectric way, the compact disk. Yeah, this is the most robust way. You can also erase it easily, put new ones there sometimes, but it's more robust. Yeah, this can go broke easily. No, it can be destroyed easily. This is more difficult to damage. So now we see the 5 energies. We put the air now in the middle. I will explain later why. Here we see 2 dimensions. The dimension of tangibility. This is the most tangible one. This is in the 3D world. While ether is the less tangible one. You cannot grab it. So earth is easy to grab. Ether is totally impossible to grab. And these are in between. Yeah, of course you can grab in your water in your hands, but then it will flow again. You can also put fire in your hands, but it's very painful. And you can try to bring air into your hands. So these are in between. Very tangible, totally intangible, and yeah, let's say semi-tangible. The vertical dimension is the dimension of temperature. Hottest one is fire, while the coldest one is magnetic, is water. And air is in between. These 3 are in between. These are also the way we function. On top of ourselves we have a fire computer, that's our brain. In our heart we have a water computer, yeah? Pumping water around. It's a magnetic computer. This is an electric computer, magnetic, electric. And in between we have a chemical computer. Our senses function in a chemical way. Our eyes, our nose, our tongue, our ears. That's all chemical. So we have a chemical computer being our senses, our brain is a fire computer, and our heart is a magnetic water computer. So that's what we see here. Same as in our brain. We find the same 5 forces or energies in the Platonic solids. Again we see a reference to Plato. Plato wrote about these important 3-dimensional shapes. Tetrahedron means 4, because it has 4 faces. Hexa means 6. We also call it a cube. Hexahedron has 2 shapes. Let me show them. Yeah, here we see the tetrahedron. It has 4 faces. Very beautiful shape. This is the hexahedron. 6 faces. When we make a dice, we write 1 to 6 on top of each other, and the sum of each opposite part is always 7. Then we can use it as a dice. This is the octahedron. Octa means 8, like octopus, or even October, because that's originally the 8th month. So octa means 8, it has 8 faces. Here we have the dodecahedron. Dodeca means 12. So the dodecahedron has 12 faces. And each face is a pentagon. That's a side face with 5 sides. 5. And fifthly, we have the icosahedron. Icosa means 20. So this is the shape with the most faces. And each face is a triangle. Just like with the octahedron and the tetrahedron. And here we see it. Icosa. And there are relations between, because these 2 are in fact, they can be changed into each other. And the same is true here. Tetrahedron means fire. The most stable shape, this one. That's Earth. Octahedron means air. Dodecahedron means ether. And the icosahedron means water. Here again we see akasha and ether, they mean the same thing in the dodecahedron. What do they have for functions, these 5 energies, or these 5 proto-forces? Earth means differentiation. We have very, very different earthly bodies. Every earthly body is different from each other earthly body. So earth means differentiation. Water means changing. Water is always changing. Water is bringing up and down again. So it's always movement of water. Air means reversing. When you look at the shape, then you can easily imagine. I always have the need to reverse this, to put it upside down. And then when I see it, I want to put it upside down again. Of course, you can put it like this. It's the same. So it has a pyramid on top and it has a pyramid below. And then you have the urge to reverse it. So you see it in the shape, but it's also the essence of air energy. Air wants to reverse from a high pressure area to a low pressure area. Air is always reversing. When it's there, it goes back again. That's why the winds are always changing from different directions during the year. Fire means transforming. When you want to make bread, for instance, you need fire to transform it into bread, but you cannot reverse it. Yeah? Transformation is irreversible. Once you have transformed it into a higher level, you cannot bring it back again. And ether, information, is about informing. Here we see them in the same place as I showed the energies before. 3D earth, 1D ether, and these in between: fire, water, air. What you now see is that all the triangles are the vertical line in the middle. This is a triangle, faces, triangle faces, triangle faces. The square faces are here, and the dodecahedron has the pentagon faces. So that's one thing we see. Other thing we see is the least amount of faces, the triangles, then 8, and this is 20. So 4, 8, 20. Now let us look at the numbers. When you have this shape, the tetrahedron, and you put it on the floor, it always has 3 corners at the bottom. So this represents 3. It has 4 faces, but it represents the value of 3 in the two-dimensional world. So the two-dimensional world is the world under it, the surface. So the surface, the 2D world, has 3. The cube, and the hexahedron, in the 2D world has 4. When you put it on the floor, 4 corners are touching it. So I think everybody can understand that this is 4. 2D, it is 4. And 2D, this shape, dodecahedron, is 5. When you put it on the floor, it has 5 corners touching the floor. So this is 5. Then we have this one, the octahedron. Everybody, when they put it down or they put it on a line, they make it like this. Nobody puts it like this on the floor. This looks ridiculous. Yeah? Of course you can do it, but it doesn't feel right. The only way to put this down is like this. So that means only one point is touching the floor. That means octahedron is a representation of 1. You have 1 left. This one is a little bit difficult because a lot of people put it like this too, with 1 point touching the floor. But to me, the correct way to position it is with 2 points at the floor. So like this. That means that this is 2. And when you look at numerology, it has 20 faces, and the numerological value of 20, 2 plus 0, is 2. So that's another indication this has to be 2. So here we see the logical ordering. Octahedron is 1. The octahedron, what's the name? Sorry. Icosahedron. Icosahedron is 2. Tetrahedron is 3. The hexahedron is 4, and the dodecahedron is 5. Now we get a little bit into difficult area, because these are the energies I just explained, but these are the names of the 5 elements. And the 5 elements correspond to the 5 energies. But it's very difficult to see that correspondence, because it's a little bit tricky. And the only way to find the correct correspondence is to look at the seasons. because these refer to the seasons and these refer to the seasons as well. And when you understand that, then you can make the connection. Autumn is the season of water. Water comes down mostly, at least in our climate, in autumn. Winter is the season of air. The most severe winds, storms, are always in the winter. Spring is the season of earth. Earth is reviving itself, everything is growing from the earth again, so that's the earth season. While summer is the fire season. Fire is the temperature is highest here. So that's how you can look at it. And ether is that in between fire and water, just like we saw in the previous picture. So this is the world above, so to say. In the world below, we find these 5 elements. And when we connect them to the seasons, we see that autumn is the season of metal, winter of water, spring of wood, and summer of fire. And earth is in between fire and metal. It's in fact a little bit more complicated, but I'll explain it now. But earth is in between. So what do we get now? Fire corresponds to fire. So that's easy. But that's the only easy part, because everything else is not easy. For instance, water does not correspond to water. Where is it? To this one. Water corresponds to metal. And earth doesn't correspond to earth, but to wood, not to earth, and ether to earth. So you need to understand the seasons and the connection, then you can make the right connection. Here we find the right connection in a different scheme. Here we see wood and air together. Fire and fire. Metal and water. Water and earth and air. Air is the first phase, water is the second phase, fire is the third phase, and earth is the fourth phase. So when we look at this inner circle, it goes from 1, 2, 3, 4. But when we look at the seasons, it goes from spring, summer, autumn, winter. So it's going like this. That's why I use this symbol. Some people are afraid of this symbol because they think it's in relation to Nazi Germany. But this is a very ancient symbol. It's just showing that the circle, the outer circle, is going clockwise. The outer circle is going clockwise, while the inner circle is going counterclockwise. Yeah? This is spring, summer, autumn, winter. This is also morning, afternoon, evening, night. In my other lectures I've talked a lot about that and the dynamics of these 4 energies. So here we see them connected again, fire with fire, earth with wood, ether with earth, and the words are of course a little bit similar, air with water and water with metal. These are the 3D elements, these are the 2D forces. And it's a little bit tricky because the water here and the water here, they are not the same. In my previous lectures I assumed that they would be the same, which is not true. I recently discovered that. Here are 2 cycles, a life-giving cycle, a yin cycle, and a life-taking cycle, the yang cycle. The round circle, that is the female life-giving circle, while the pentagram in the middle, the straight lines, pointed lines, they are the male life-taking forces. When we have had a fire, the ashes are feeding the earth. In the earth, metals are growing. Metal is feeding water. When it is very hot, water is easily condensed on metal surfaces. Water is feeding wood. When you don't give water to your plants, they will die. And water is feeding fire. When you want to make the fire last longer, you need to put in wood once in a while. So that's the feeding female cycle. It makes it more and more and more. It makes it grow. The other cycle, with the pentagram lines, is reducing or is controlling. Fire controls metal. When you heat metal, you can change the shape. With a metal axe, you can cut down a wooden tree. that's this line. With wooden shelves, you can put earth into its place, prevent it from falling down. With an earth dike, you can try to keep the water out. The North Sea, for instance, in the Netherlands. So the earth is controlling the water. With water, you can put out fire. So water is controlling fire. Those are the male controlling lines. And they are, in nature, they are fully in balance. In our society, however, not. Because we focus very much on the red arrows and we forgot about the green ones. Nature brings it in balance, keeps it in balance, but we disturb that balance by focusing too much on the male young lines. Traditional Chinese medicine shows how the vital organs are related according to this rhythm. Heart is fire, spleen is the air, earth, for instance, I'm not sure, lungs, kidney, and the liver. And here we see the qualities: informing, changing, reversing, differentiating, and transforming. We can go into a lot of detail about this, but this is revealing the dynamics. And we can focus on the green arrow, now it's going the other way around, or on the red ones. Green is life-giving, red is life-taking. And we need to do both. But again, we focus too much on the red arrows. It means life-taking, controlling. And of course we have 5 senses. We can hear, we can taste, we can smell, we can touch, and we can see. And I think the one that is connected to the ether, to God, is our ear. We can hear God. That's why I think in the Bible it says, in the beginning it was the Word. Because the Word, we can hear it. We can hear the Word of God. And so people can hear voices in their head directly from the source. This is the pyramid of Maslow combined with 5 levels of freedom. Because they are related. And when you understand the pyramid of Maslow, you can see it's the same ordering. Earth, fire, water, and air. And on top of that, we find ether. Now it's ether 0. So it's 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. We have bodily functions and we have bodily needs. Yeah, we need to have food, for instance. We need to have oxygen to breathe. If we don't have oxygen, we die. So we need here oxygen. If you don't have oxygen, you're not interested in any level on top of that. You're only focused on here. You need to have oxygen. If you have oxygen and enough to eat, then you go to the next level. You're able to do that. And the next level, you need resources. For instance, you want to travel, or you want to do things. The resource in our society is money. You need to have money on this level. You need to have sufficient resources to do what you want to do. Then you have operational freedom. Yeah? When you can't breathe, you don't have any physical freedom. Yeah? When somebody's choking you, your physical freedom is limited. When you don't have enough money, you don't have enough operational freedom. What we do here, at this lowest level, we want to exist. We want to continue with our existence. What we do at the second level, we want to protect our resources. When somebody's trying our stock for the winter, then we are going to fight about it because we want to survive the winter in the ancient times. So we want to protect our resources. When we have enough resources, then we go to the level on top of that, and that is about social coherence. We want to have friends, we want to belong to a group. That's at this level. We want to connect with other people. And it's about emotional freedom. A lot of groups are actually somehow diminishing the emotional freedom because we claim a lot of each other. That's another story. But it's about emotional freedom. Then we have, on top of that, when this is also accomplished, esteem, self-esteem. We want to be respected, and we want to give respect to other people. And this is about intellectual freedom. We want to be able to create our own ideas. For instance, we start to write a book, or we give a presentation, or we make a poem, or whatever. We write a song. We want to have intellectual freedom. And we want to be respected for what we create, those esteem. And the highest level, the fifth level, the level of the ether, we can say, is about spiritual freedom. We want to, as Maslow called it, actualize ourselves. Realize, transcend into a higher level of ourselves. So these are the 5 levels. But in essence, there are not 5, there are more. Because this 5th level is again a hierarchy of 5 levels. Here we saw